Hey, welcome to Lab, the podcast. We are back with our V3 artist and poet, Wendy Kieffer. It's so good to be back. We have been trying to get this conversation for a few weeks. We went through sickness. We went through every bit of friction to get back to this conversation. So I'm excited to be here with you. It is 30 degrees outside in Florida, which is fantastic. So I think this will air even this week in the shadow of the winter cold, which I love. But it's good to be back. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I feel like all we need now is just a fire in the background.
That's all I ever need.
That's what we need. We need a fire, scarf.
It's so good.
Yeah.
The things that are very, very foreign to Florida, but it's good. 2023, we were in this living room, actually sitting right here with a group of people, and we kicked off this idea of Poetry Corner for V3, expressing the life and beauty of the gospel in the world. We have been doing that through art, through literature, through music, through content, through immersive experiences, all these different ways, not just to talk about the idea of the gospel, but to embody it and to see it expressed in the world. And poets help us see, and Robert Frost have a way of helping us remember what it would impoverish us to forget. Yes. And so thinking about that, we thought it would be important not just to read poetry, to include it in some of the ways that we were expressing the life and beauty of the gospel, but to actually help people return back to maybe an art form that they're not familiar with. So that's where this all started. If you can say, think back to 2023 and how you have seen poetry kind of color the ministry of V3. What's been a way that you've seen poetry uniquely contribute to V3's work to express the life and beauty of the gospel in the world?
I think including it in the team meetings has been really beautiful because there's so much business that needs to be discussed, and taking the time to first orient to, of course, prayer, but then something really beautiful and let that just ignite among the group. I think that's been wonderful to saturate those group meetings with poetry. Every time we've done that, it's been great. I think that I've seen a spark and a love for poetry start to crop up in people that maybe thought that wasn't their thing. The more comfortable that they get with hearing it, being around it, I think that it's been really a beautiful addition to their rhythms and cadences. So I've loved that. And I love how we've incorporated it in different worship settings, just because it has, look at Psalms, it has that thunderous, majestical way of declaring and claiming the things of God that is just really special. It's nice to see it go back into those worship spaces.
Yeah, it's been cool. We said monthly, unless we're sick and fighting sickness, we're going to try monthly to include poetry in Lab, the podcast. Yeah. And you all have become a part of that in listening and just building a little more familiarity with poems and poets. And we've been encouraging people, put these on your coffee table. Find a poet like Mary Oliver and get a collection. Familiarize yourself with old poets. Become familiar with great new poetry. And we've been doing it little by little. Some of the feedback that I have heard that's been really cool is they've taken us up on that invitation, and there's poetry now in people's homes, and there wasn't before. And people are familiar with great religious poets like Hopkins. And they said, I had no idea that there was this beautiful musical poetry that would be so interesting, but also theologically rich and wonderful. And so it's been cool to hear people say things like that. It's been cool to hear and see you hosted a little poetry night, and everybody from kids to older folks just were writing their own poetry and exploring that. And I've found it really, really cool that people will refer now to a poem that they heard at a V3 event, or they heard one on the podcast, and they'll say, I remember that poem. And I think that's one of the things is poetry makes things sticky in a way. We're just hit with words, and we see words, and we're surrounded by words all the time. And Emily Dickinson, take a truth and tell it slant.
Right.
Poetry helps us to see ordinary things and to open our minds and our hearts to consider them with fresh eyes.
Right.
And that's what this poem particularly does. So it's not just this particular poem, but it's a way of seeing. It's a way of being. And I think when we can take that and return back to our own kitchen, to our kids' bedroom as we're helping them get ready for their days, to our backyards, to our dinner tables, it uncovers something really wonderful. So I
Yes.
loved that you brought The Patience of Ordinary Things. This is a
Yes.
great poem. So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about the poet and set the poem up, and then let's just enjoy this one.
Yeah, so this is a very well-known poem called The Patience of Ordinary Things by Pat Schneider. And it's a very simple poem, very profound. It's so meaningful. And I think it even was to her. She has the last line etched on her gravestone. That this is just a very poignant piece that translated to so many different people. And, one thing I love about Pat Schneider, she's written, she's passed away. I think she passed away about 5 years ago. But she had 5 poetry books. And then she had about 5 nonfiction books that she wrote about writing, about workshopping poets and poetry. And really, she spent a lot of her time serving the underserved communities, going into prisons and housing projects and sitting with people who maybe were told or thought somewhere along the way that their voice didn't matter, and showed up and made space for those people. And it was beautiful because even her own story, she was raised by a single mother and then put into an orphanage. Her mother could not care for them. So she went into an orphanage at 11.
Wow.
And just her history of poverty, of feeling loneliness, of feeling discarded, she ended up using that compassion, that compassionate response to redeem that experience by going in and finding those people that felt like they had no voice and saying, I want to hear what you have to say. And I love even how she was taking this sort of common form of critique. So we talk about this a lot on the podcast, that there's this sort of analytical way that we, slice and dice poetry in schools, and then we think we hate it and we move on with life. Well, as a writer in an MFA program, she was also realizing that the way that you move through writing is that you polish up your piece and then you set it up for your circle to critique it and draw lines and red marks and just kind of chop it up. And she said when she and her poet friend started hosting these workshops in their home, back when she was raising her 4 kids and was postgraduate degree, her husband was a minister, they started these workshops in their home. And eventually those led to her developing this famous workshop, the Amherst Writers and Artists Workshop, that went on like just so many people have copied her style. And she and her poet friend, when they were having these workshops, started out doing that very analytical, like bring in your best poems and we'll just critique them. And she said that the voice and that the honesty of the poems and the richness and the imaginative quality of them was so reduced that they were like, let's try something different. And so they started this other technique, which was allowing a prompt or a trigger. And so her poet friend brought in seashells, just a handful of seashells, and she just strewn them about the coffee table. And everyone had 15 minutes to just write about what you see. She said the responses were imaginative, playful, they were honest, they were rich, and they weren't over-edited, over-analyzed, over-analytical, over-cerebral. She said then the response from the room, rather than being really critique heavy, is what do you love about it? What stuck out at you? Because why would you critique something so harshly that just came out? It's in its first iteration. So she developed this whole very accessible thing she was able to then go to people that maybe never thought of themselves as poets. And she said, you're a writer because you write. A writer is someone who writes. This isn't some fancy thing that is only for artists. She went in and gave these people a voice. So sorry about that long intro, but she really inspired me to take her love of writing and then give back to these communities.
Yeah. No, I think back to even the original Poetry Corner. That was one of the hopes, right? So many of us feel distant from this art form, from many art forms. We see this with art unveilings where we're doing visual art, or with people who say like symphony orchestral music, I don't understand it. And we create so much distance from it because we're not allowed to just explore it and
Right.
to enjoy it and to not be great at it on day one. And that points to a problem like culturally in our society, even the way we read the Bible, right?
Right.
So many people feel like I'm not going to speak up. I'm not even going to open, like I can't make sense of this. And if I read this story, just literally open up the book of John and I read this beautiful story and there's something fresh and alive and wonderful about it. But then the minute I open my mouth and I say something that's coming out of it, my own critical voice or the critical voices around me, that's not what that means. That you can't read it like that. It's not, there's no room to just allow it to be a living and active thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think there's something good about the way she was teaching and maybe even this conversation with poetry that can translate all the way back to how do we read the Bible?
Yes.
How do we educate our kids?
Right.
What do we do with our friends? It doesn't feel good to be with a group of friends and say, hey, I had an idea. And everybody just kicks you in the head and tells you how dumb it is and why it won't work. And then you're just like, that feels awful.
Right.
And I don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
And so,
or they say, how much money is that going to make?
Exactly.
Where's your bottom line? Where are you going with
started on that?
It's like,
and this is why, right? Like Chat GPT, the Antichrist, will say, what does it do? What has it done so well? Every response is a whimsical and affirming response.
It's true.
And so maybe not all bad, but we can pay attention to that and to the way she was teaching and say, what if we create space for you to not be afraid, to open up and to share how that made you feel, where that made you curious, or to ask a question without feeling like that overly critiqued analytical side is going to squash it.
Right. Or even the overly productivity driven side. That what is this going to produce? Are you going to be a poet? Are you going to commodify that? Are you going to, right? It's sort of like, she says, when we neglect the artist in ourselves, there is a kind of mourning that goes on under the surface of our busy lives.
Yeah.
There is a kind of mourning, I think, from that. We always talk about the interior world. How do we access that? And the poetry we read might let something come up from the inside that's been in there that needs to be addressed. But also this idea of writing. She looked at it as very therapeutic. And that's just, there's a whole subtext of conversation among writers. No, it's an art form, it's a craft, it's not therapy. And her argument was it's both. There's a breadth that she said she develops from her craft, from getting better, the breadth, but then there's a depth. There's a depth to her experience, her pain, her life. That is also then sort of mined and re-experienced as she's writing. So she said it's both. Yeah, it's not therapy in like the classic, but it is good for your heart and soul, for your healing and for your development and for knowing what's in here. So anyhow, it's a big intro for Pat Schneider, but I love that we're.
I love that. I love the way that she was introducing that way of. Not just education, but there's formation taking place in moments like that where you get to do it together. Exactly. And so I loved Poetry Corner, but I love this for the same reason. So here's an invitation. Even as you listen to The Patience of Ordinary Things, I would be so curious to hear your feedback, how a particular poem resonated or where that little trail led you, or even a piece of this conversation and how that impacts you. So you can always reach out to VUVIVO, just Zach at VUVIVO. I would love to hear your thoughts, particularly on this one. But why don't you take us through The Patience of Ordinary Things?
Here we go. The Patience of Ordinary Things by Pat Schneider. It is a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea, how the chair stands sturdy and foursquare, how the floor receives the bottoms of shoes or toes, how soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things, how clothes wait respectfully in closets, and soap dries quietly in the dish, and towels drink the wet from the skin of the back, and the lovely repetition of stairs. And what is more generous than a window? Just feel yourself slowing down.
Yeah, even as you read that, I almost was going to just ask to read it again. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
ask you to read it again because it's so brief and we're moving so
So
fast
true.
that you get to something
Mhm.
and you get to these lines like soap dries quietly in a dish. And I could feel my mind trying to orient to that moment in the poem.
Mhm.
And there's so much speed. So maybe let's read it
Let's do
one
it
more time
again.
and then just take us into the first lines and what you begin to see.
Okay. It is a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea, how the chair stands sturdy and foursquare, how the floor receives the bottoms of shoes or toes, how soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things, how clothes wait respectfully in closets, and soap dries quietly in the dish, and towels drink the wet from the skin of the back, and the lovely repetition of stairs. And what is more generous than a window? You can see that her style is lean and honest, precise, authentic, but very conversational. She was a believer in what she called the primary voice, which is your most authentic voice, not the voice that you would give to like strangers or for your job or even on a podcast, but your most authentic voice. She was really, you can hear this authentic voice coming through, almost like Mary Oliver. Nothing's super fancy, nothing is abstract, cryptic, right? Just questions, just these subtle noticing. And what she's saying is, this, is it a kind of love? Is it not? The poem begins with a question and it ends with a question, like little bookends. And we always say that, the curiosity is what drives you to discovery. It's what drives you to wisdom. It's what drives you to beauty. Hey, I heard there's a really beautiful outlook over there. I want to go see it. You're curious and you're driven toward it by that curiosity. She said, it is a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea, how the chair stands sturdy and foursquare, how the floor receives the bottoms of shoes or toes. And so she's personifying all of these objects around her. And she is finding the sacred in the everyday and almost love as a kind of service. There are those ordinary loves that are around us that are holding space for us, holding us when we're in need. They stand sturdy. There are those who receive these ordinary objects around us that we've made even. I think there's a beauty in the wonder of them. We've made this cup to hold the tea, and the elements of the world were given to us, and we were given this ability to shape them so that we can grow the tea leaves over here, dry them out in the air, put them into the cup, add the water, and this vessel holds it for us. And isn't that love? The holding of that warm liquid for our bodies. And the chair stands sturdy and foursquare. So I think she's having this generosity that is igniting in her over her ordinary space and just how wondrous and magnificent it is. That there is nothing ordinary. Everything is extraordinary. And she's saying, how soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I think that the feet part of this is my favorite. How soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. Again, there's a design. There's a beautiful, intricate, rhythmic design to even the ordinary functions of our home and our life and where we walk and what we do. That is just so extraordinary. The soles of my feet know. It could be pitch dark in my house and I know how to get around. My feet have memorized it. They have their own, mind. And she's saying, I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things. Patience. Why patience? The patience of ordinary things. Remember, she said it is a kind of love, is it not? It reminded me of the 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it keeps no records of wrongs. And I always thought, why does that list start off with love is patient? Why? Why is that the first word? Love is patient, love is kind. And if you go back to the original, the Old English, it says long suffering. Patience is a suffering, a long suffering. There's a waiting, there's an ability to serve, to put yourself aside and to serve and to be about the other. And that leads you to kindness. One of the times when you apologize to your kids, I'm sorry, I lost my patience, right? That's when I was unkind. So she says, it's kind of love, is it not? And then she said, I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things, how they wait, how they serve, how they receive, how they stand, how they hold, how they carry, how they drink, how they dry. And of course, these are just objects. Of course, she's being playful and giving these things action and meaning through her imagination, her perception, but she's also tuning to her environment and allowing those things to really take on, to try to see them for what they are. That these things have been made, these things serve me. And then you start looking at maybe the people that occupy your space. This person is just every day steady and foursquare. This person every day is receiving me, holding my words and ideas. And now your perception's going out to broaden you because to lack of a better word, now you're mindful. You're mindful. And you're slowed down. When I read this, I completely slow down. Clothes wait respectfully in closets. It's a wonderful image. Soap dries quietly in the dish. Towels drink the wet from the skin of the back. And the lovely repetition of stairs. Again, back to the feet. I can just hear dunk, 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 as you're going up the stairs. Suddenly I hear it. And then this last line again ends with a question. And what is more generous than a window? What a great line. What a great line. And again, she had this line etched on her gravestone. And what is more generous than a window? Hello, everyone. My name is Wendy Kieffer, and I am honored and overjoyed to share with you my debut poetry collection, Alchemy of Praise. I chose the word alchemy for the title because it represents transformation, and especially the kind that is magnificent or mysterious and even inexplicable. Also, alchemy represents the kind of change that is possible through poetry, taking beauty from ashes and the way it lives inside of us, transforming the way we see or perceive our world. And you'll find in this collection a variety of themes, poems on wonder and stillness, poems that exalt God and lift our eyes up, and also poems that explore the interior spaces of the soul. All of these I offer to you with love and deep gratitude. You can find your copy on Amazon. And here's to allowing poetry to do as Jana Joya said, to awaken, amplify, and refine our sense of being alive. Thanks again.
Wow. Yeah, you think about loving God and loving our neighbor. And there's no mere mortals. There's no ordinary people. Like you've never met a mere mortal.
Right.
So everyone's extraordinary. And yet in this most ordinary way, I think there's this pressure right now for us to feel like we've got to do like everything's got to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
And we have forgotten the extraordinary wonder of a floor that receives the bottom of feet. Like think about personifying that floor, just like an act of service, the repetition of stairs.
Yeah.
Could you get me a joy holder? Could you get me a comfort holder? What do you mean by that? Well, I mean a cup, right? Like
that's a secret name for the cup.
Yeah. Like we could say it's a cup. It's what we've come to see as this discardable thing, this thing that never gets used. We don't wonder at it, but the cup exists in a certain way as a kind of love to hold the tea.
Yes.
And what's going on in the tea. This is a gift for you to receive, to warm you when it's 30 degrees outside. And so get your comfort holder and be grateful for it.
I love
right?
that.
Like,
Yeah.
what if we saw every single part of our world as, is it not a certain kind of love? Right? For the teacher to teach, for the waiter to wait, for the, right? Like it's just it's an invitation, and what's more generous than a window, right?
Right.
To look at something in a new way.
Right. And we know that eyes are the windows to the soul, and writers have that beautiful way of allowing us to get into their skull and peer out through their windows and see things as they see them. And I feel like what is more generous than a window? She was a kind of window for us to look out through and to see something beautiful and different and to notice things. Her life seems like it was a type of window. I love that she has that on her gravestone. But I also love what you said. On the last podcast, I mentioned Dr. Shaw, who I've been, really spent time with over the summer, and I've been listening to a lot of his podcasts and reading his books. And he does say this, that it really is beneficial to enjoy your imagination coming up with the secret names of things. It's more than a cup. Like you said, it's a what did you call it? A
comfort holder, a joy holder,
a joy holder.
Yeah.
Well, think it probably has 11 other names
as
it's warming your hands and as it's creating a convivial experience with the people you're with. I mean, that once you are aware of kind of these secret names, the teleological, the purpose behind the thing, it can help you enjoy, I think, have such a richer experience. I mean, I've been trying to move out of my house because we outgrew it a few years ago, and my 13, well now 14-year-old is 6'1", and it's small space. But when I read this and I think of the floor and the closets and it kind of simplifies and helps you find that gratitude for the simple, ordinary things that you have. The simple, ordinary things that you have, and really seeing them for what they are and finding that gratitude in their service. I know that sounds like we're personifying them again, but I mean, I go back to my theater days. In theater, I did a lot of theater in high school, college, and then beyond. And the props would live somewhere. So you would always say, where does the prop live? And it always like lives on that table. It lives in that spot. It lives over here. It lives. And I got so used to that when I read this poem, I'm like, the cup lives there. The chair lives here.
Yeah.
Are we onto something a little deeper? It's not just whimsical. I think if these are, if this is matter that we have driven into a certain shape to serve a certain purpose, then it does have quite a lot of beauty and meaning in it, doesn't it?
Yeah. When it even goes back like a sacramental ontology, the fact that the reality, it's dancing, tingling, a festival, not a cold machine.
Exactly.
The reality that if we inhabited our homes with joy holders and the floor that's receiving our feet and the playful, the wonderful, lovely repetition of stairs, if that's how we were inhabiting our days, how might we treat the people who show up? And I think that's to the idea of secret names, right?
Yep.
There's Riley is our producer, right? But he's a friend, but he's also a deeply compassionate person. And so there's a caregiver. And so now I know you as this and this and this and this, and everybody listening, like there's a secret, there's a quality about you, right? Like a cup holds the tea. It's a joy holder. And when we see things like that, there's an enchantment to reality that I believe is the kingdom of God. It's alive. It's here. It's a way of seeing.
Yes.
And so to love God and love your neighbor, to be patient, to be kind, the invitation to inhabit the world in such a way it's already been made. It's already gone out. And we have to come back to a way of seeing that allows us to inhabit what is real, and not what is the flattened fiction.
That's right.
Where things are discarded and they're meaningless.
That's
and
right.
They're objects.
That's why, I studied the myth over the summer, and that's why some of the myths have more truth in them. They have more truth in them because you're expanding your understanding of what it is that you're going through, or what the person. Martin Shaw said, think of a person in your life. Think of a person. Maybe you do this for a birthday. Maybe their birthday's coming up, or maybe it's part of your Christmas present to them. But come up with the secret names of that person And maybe they're kind of mythic. Maybe they use some kind of animal nature. If that person reminds you of an owl, and you come up with these names for this a person, like you said, the joy holder for the cup. But if you did that for a person and presented them with the gift of, I see you, and I see you in all of the wondrous facets of who you are, not in the flattened version. I see you, and present it to them for a gift. It's a great, I think, exercise, even if you don't give it to them, just from seeing them in a more clear way.
Yeah, more clear and in a full and rich. And meaningful
and symbolic.
way. Yep.
Symbolic, creative. Yeah.
It's a great poem, The World is Too Much With Us. And I love this Wordsworth. I think the world is too much with us. Late and soon getting and spending, we've laid waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. Like he just goes on and on and on. And he gets to this part and he says, it moves us not for this, for that, for everything. We're out of tune. It moves us not. And he says, great God, I'd rather be a peg unsuckled and a creed outworn. What he's saying is, I'd rather be in a mythical world where everything was meaningful and significant than to exist with disconnected from everything and having it flattened and reduced down, right?
Yep.
And I think it's a great invitation as we think about sitting around the table at Thanksgiving is just like weeks away.
Right.
And imagine just being at a table and be our guest, right? The candle holders are holding candles. They're light holders, and there's joy holders on the table, and there's secret names for all of our people instead of these people we hate and have to avoid, stepping on each other's toes, right? Like it can get so difficult to just live present with the incredible, indestructible joy that is life. So if you're setting a table coming up for Thanksgiving, if you're welcoming people into your home, maybe just go back and as you listen to the Patience of Ordinary Things, think about people opening your door. And the floor that will receive the bottom of their shoes, and the lovely holders that will gather their cloaks and put them away, the lovely repetition of stairs that they'll step up to, and what cups that will hold the tea or the wine that they'll enjoy.
Yes.
If we could just see in a fresh way, and I think what's more generous than a window, this poem itself functions like that.
It does. And how beautiful that when you see everything in your home in that new light, the purpose behind it and what it really is doing, maybe we'll be less focused on the idea that I don't have enough space. I don't have the nice dishes. I wish I could have this. I don't have enough seats. Why is this person coming? All the other things that you might be distracted by. Go down to those very simple, beautiful, essential things that we do have.
Yeah.
That are enough and more than enough. Yeah.
When you were saying that, I was just thinking like, I need less things. If I'm going to love them like that, and if I'm going to see them like that, how many cups can I have that I intimately know? How many chairs can I have that I intimately know? How many square feet can I have that are inhabited like that? For me, it's probably smaller than for someone else. But I think what a great invitation, whatever the square footage, whatever the number of cups, to inhabit it and to enjoy it. And I think whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do it to the glory of God.
That's right.
God is alive. He's risen indeed. And he created the world by him and for him, not out of need or necessity, but out of love.
That's right.
And then in this great divorce, this great tragedy, moral tragedy of sin and death and the separation from God. And God says, no, that's not the last word.
That's right.
I so love the world, right? And he goes out and he redeems the world and he brings it back and he has a name for it that's a new creation, right? Like this is this is our story.
It's right.
This is our story. And it's not like we don't have to make that true. That is the story. That's why we say the life and beauty of the gospel. We're alive in that story.
Yes.
That is our story. And we don't have to be suckled in a creed outworn. This is the testimony that's rung out. He's risen indeed.
Amen.
And that light has shined on all things. And so I see everything through that light. And so my cup, my neighbor, my floor, everything has changed on this side of the resurrection. And I think that's what allows us to say there are no mere mortals, and yet I can be totally content being an ordinary thing.
Right.
It's a both. I am just Zach, and yet I'm fearfully, wonderfully made,
Yeah.
and I'm somehow a joy holder. I have a particular part to play. What I am is me. For that I came. Christ playing in 10,000 places.
That's right.
That's the story.
That's right. That's so good. Yeah, and even if we wanted, I think we've said this before, but even as a meditation, thinking of secret names for Christ. Of course, we know his name, Redeemer, and all of Father and Counselor and Mighty Counselor, and we know all of the names. But what does he do? What has he done for you? There are names that not that you're giving him, but that you're recognizing he has done, and therefore he represents. And it could go. There's infinite. I mean, of all the things he's done. If this is a joy holder, right? Then imagine Christ himself in our lives. That there's those names. I think we kind of have this tendency to not just reduce the things around us, but to reduce Christ.
Yeah.
To pretend like we understand him.
Yeah.
This.
And how much of a difference is there between fighting to understand you at a rational level and knowing you at a mysterious and unending level? And this is eternal life, that you would know me, right? And depart from me, I never knew you. There's this knowing piece that's like, you can understand something, as I said in my book, you can get it and not have it.
That's right. And a lot of churches teach this cerebral worksheet version of Christ to kids. And they think, okay, well, I know about this, check. I know about that, check. I pray sometimes, check. And they're missing this profound mystery, wonder, and just, like you said, an infinite exploration in the wonders of God. They're missing all of that too.
Yeah.
So
the patience of ordinary things. November, cold outside, perfect for this.
Yeah.
Coming up to Thanksgiving. I don't know what your life is like. A lot of us are going through tough stuff, heavy stuff. I know we said opening before we started recording that for some people, the year end is just like, I got to tuck my shoulder. There's a lot I have to get done.
Yeah.
So that I can have a couple quiet moments with my friends and family. So we're all in that space. We get that. But maybe the patience of ordinary things will just be an invitation, a generous window for you to see things in a fresh way. And again, I would love to hear what this catalyzed, how this was generative and sparked something in your life. So would you just read us out with the patience of ordinary things?
Sure. And just a question, would you like to read it, since I've read it?
I love it when you read. I think the resounding feedback from that's
I didn't know,
wonderful.
I've read it
but
twice.
Yeah, we have the Michael Jordan of poetry in the modern era, so we're going to let Wendy read this out.
The patience of ordinary things. It is a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea, how the chair stands sturdy and foursquare, how the floor receives the bottoms of shoes or toes, how soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things, how clothes wait respectfully in closets, and soap dries quietly in the dish, and towels drink the wet from the skin of the back, and the lovely repetition of stairs. And what is more generous than a window?